We'd like to call the meeting to order for the City of Oxnard Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting for October 25th, 2022. The time is 8:34. Madam Clerk, would you read the introduction information, please? Thank you.
Member Zaragoza,
Here.
Chair Perillo.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on October 18th, 2022. Zoom details to call in for public comment during this meeting. Dial phone number 888-475-4499. Meeting ID 897-9747 5224. Passcode 003740. If you wish to speak during public comments or a particular item on the agenda, please sign on by following the Zoom calling steps listed. Once the presiding officer calls for public speakers, press *9 to raise your hand to inform the city clerk you would like to speak during the public speaking section for that particular item on the agenda while in the Zoom waiting room. In accordance with Assembly Bill 361 and in response to the declared state and local emergencies due to the novel coronavirus, the legislative body will meet in person and remotely. To participate remotely, visit www.oxnard.org.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate it very much. The posting of the agenda. The posting of the agenda has been taken care of.
Yes,
And Madam Clerk, one more time, could you read the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
sure.
Thank you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comments on items not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers either online or?
Chair Perillo, we do not have any speakers virtually or in person.
Thank you very much. Assistant City Clerk, thank you. On the consent agenda, City Clerk Department, the approval of the minutes. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee approve the minutes for October 11th regular meeting as presented. Mayor, do you see any room for additions, corrections, or changes?
Move approval.
I second that.
Chair, we have no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. Thank you. And may we take the roll call, please?
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Chair Perillo.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on the agenda is reports. D1, Public Works Department. The subject, approved purchase order of the WEX Bank for the Fleet Fuel Card Program. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommends the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a purchase order with WEX Bank in an amount not to exceed $8,800,000 for a 2-year term for fuel cards. There is a presentation, but due to Measure M, we will not be able to see it. And I would really recommend that the public make sure that they look at these presentations. Time, work, effort, blood, and sweat go into these things, and they're very informative. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
Chair Perillo, we have no speakers virtually or in person.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I understand that as was mentioned that this is a 2-year term, for the cards and about $8,800,000. And I was looking at the report, and by the way, it's a good report, and I was just looking at the cards are used by by ER, which is probably the highest user of the fuel cards, and then followed by fire, parks and police, streets, water, and others. So I guess, this is really important because I think it's more efficient, is my understanding, by using the card, and also that WFX was probably the lowest bidder on this. Well, we've used them before, haven't we? I think we have. So I think it was an excellent report, and something that we can use them. But I think one of the things that you mentioned in your report was try to use it in Oxnard. Don't use it in other cities, because this is right, which I think is really important. But I think, Mr. Chair, was a really excellent report, and we use that because of the efficiency, and it serves all the departments and divisions of the city.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Jose Aurelio, I hope I'm saying your name right, and I apologize if I'm not, please.
It's okay.
I appreciate.
Areola,
Say it again.
Ariel.
Audio?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And again, my apologies.
That's okay.
I do appreciate your presentation. There are a couple of things that I have questions on. It talks about more efficient. Is there some way you can describe for the public how it's more efficient? And the second one, which I had asked the Public Works Director, I appreciate the fact that it's the ability to check that nothing funny is happening with people getting gas, that they're not supposed to get gas. How do we check that? How do we handle that with this new program? And I'm sure we've been doing it in the past also, but what's the improvements here?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Jose Arreola, Fleet Services Manager. The efficiency comes from not having to use multiple vendors. This vendor is approved in 95% of gas stations around the US. Mr. Wolf put out a memo for all employees to buy local here. So all the taxes and everything stays here. Some of the security measures that we have for these fuel cards is from the very first request of the card. The fuel type is selected. So if we have an employee that only needs gasoline, we don't give them all three options, which is diesel, CNG, and gasoline. We just give them what they need. Second is a gallon limit per transaction. Number three would be hours to fuel, from certain hour to certain hour, days to fuel during the week, weekends, number of transactions allowed per day. It could be one transaction, two transactions, and then also approval for out-of-state fueling. That's all in the very first when they apply for a card, when they bring it to Fleet for an employee to get a card. And then at the fuel pump, at the gas stations, PIN number is required. So if you enter the PIN number incorrectly more than 3 times, the card locks. So that's an added security. Also, vehicle mileage is required. So if you have a vehicle goes only 50 miles and uses a full tank of fuel, then there's some sort of discrepancy there. And then for fleet services, when we bill out, we currently have 631 cards issued as of today. Average transactions that we handle per month are 3,000 to 3,500. When we download the transactions, we upload them to our fleet management system, and we provide a detailed monthly report to all divisions and to all users. We fix any erroneous charges of transactions. Sometimes, there's errors that are made. Wrong unit number sometimes is used. And if there's gasoline on the wrong unit number, we question the departments and we reach out to them if necessary. So those are some of the measures that we take.
Thank you very much. And there's a tremendous amount of confidence in that. I can tell you from having had a fuel card with the post office, the same thing. They watch like a hawk. This is not really in the report. Do we have incidents where we find that fuel is being stolen from parked vehicles that we have?
There is instances. We do, unfortunately, sometimes have to do repairs on vehicles where they climb underneath, cut the lines, and siphon it out.
Okay. Thank
It's
you very much.
unfortunate, but. you know, it
Like people,
happens.
yeah, and the price of fuel, I mean, I'm very surprised that there isn't more of that going on in local neighborhoods because of the price of fuel. It's a very valuable commodity. Thank you very much. And again,
Right.
appreciate your report. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair,
Go ahead.
one other question is, Mr. Ariola, we had pumps or have pumps over at the city yard. Do we still use those pumps? You know, and we have also propane tanks and so forth.
No, all that's been removed.
They've been removed now.
Yes, all that's been
So
removed.
no more filling there at the city yard.
No,
I remember when I was there at the city yard many times, or the big trucks would fueling and they forget to remove the hose and then with the whole pump and the part of the shielding on top, you know, so.
Yeah.
And of course, then we also had the propane tanks in the back. So all that's gone.
yeah, all that's gone, yes.
Well, that's really efficient.
There's a lot of regulations out there that makes it very expensive
And,
to have your
and
own.
many times we have problems with the underground tanks, you know, and because of their leaking and so forth. So that's gone now. So that efficiency, I think, is really important. And at one time they were thinking of having the fuel tanks on top, you know, so that's gone too. So I think that's excellent, you know, so thank you for a good report.
Thank you.
And I want to piggyback on what the mayor has said. I appreciate the fact that we're looking to purchase the fuel within the city limits of Oxnard. It let alone keeps the extra sales tax here, but it helps with local businessmen. And sometimes vehicles have to be taken home and they may be taken out of the city of Oxnard. And I appreciate Public Works directing them, fill up here in Oxnard. Thank you.
One quick thing too, with that card, they can also wash their cars at the service station. For example, I think most of the police cars used to go right there on 7th and Ventura.
Yes.
So they can also wash the car and
Yes.
also fill up their tanks.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Are anybody call in to speak on this, Madam Clerk?
Chair Perrello, no, we do not have any additional or any speakers for this item.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second. Roll call, please. Thank you for the report.
Chair Perrello,
Yes.
Member Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 2-0.
The next item on the agenda, number 2, Public Works Department. Subject, approved purchase order with Fleet Services Incorporated for medium and heavy duty equipment, parts and supplies. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the purchasing agent to establish the purchase order with Fleet Services Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $750,000 for a 3-year term with 2 one-year extensions upon agreement by both parties, beginning December 1, 2022 and ending November 30th, 2025 for medium and heavy-duty equipment, parts and supplies. Again, there is a presentation, but due to Measure M, it's not to be presented tonight, but it is online, and I highly recommend that the public watch these things. You can learn a lot, find out how your city of Oxnard works. I do take that with a degree of sting because there are people that assume they know how everything works, and then they make public statements, usually online, and they're totally in error, but there's no way to correct them. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's an opportunity to find out straight from the horse's mouth the department that's asking these things, if you take the time to look into it. Are there any speakers, Madam Clerk? Assistant City Clerk.
Chair Perrello, there are no speakers virtually or in person.
Thank you, Dee.
Again, I go back to my experience. I know that the shop for many years had their own supplies. You know, you had an actual room with supplies and so forth. And so I understand that is gone too. So now you buy directly from the suppliers, and how does it work now, Mr. Arreola?
Yeah, so we buy directly from the vendors, and we don't have to keep stock. That's a big
Expense.
where a lot of money is allocated, and it takes up a lot of the budget. So what we do is we use vendors and have them stock the units for us, all the items.
And the reason I'm asking that is because I remember the heavy equipment at the time, because we had supplies there for the simple reason that the suppliers would take, instead of having them immediately, it would take 2, 3 days or 4 days to get the parts. And you had a big heavy truck there waiting for 3, 4 days. So how do you make sure that the suppliers have what you need and how's that working?
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why we have a few suppliers because of the supply chain that is going on right now, the shortages. We do our best to try to outsource ahead of time, but sometimes there are breakdowns that happen, unfortunately. And we have 2 to 3 suppliers that we can reach out to, and some have parts that others don't. So
So they make.
that's why we go and we ask for multiple vendors of some of these units or for these big trucks, especially for ER, because they got to be, downtime has to be at a minimum.
And
You know, we
ER, I
kinda
remember the concern that we had was cylinders, if a cylinder went down, you had to have another cylinder. And sometimes Gibbs would have them, or sometimes you have to drive all the way to Los Angeles to pick up a cylinder or 2. We
Yeah.
still do that, I'm sure.
There is we have a vendor actually that comes out to us.
Oh, okay.
They come out, I believe it's once a week. And they come out and they have a truck that's kind of like the tool trucks,
Okay.
they come out and you grab what you need for what you're gonna need for that week or whatever it is, or to restock some of the supplies that you have.
That's smart. That's good. Also the other thing was oh my God, the shoes for the trucks.
Yes,
The brake shoes were many, many times, those, especially residential trucks, the shoes, they use them considerably because of the stop and goes every 50, 60 feet, they're stop and go, so.
yeah, those are high wear items.
So, but no problems with those either.
No, those,
Well, all the
this
deficiencies-
vendor is actually specializes in a lot of those braking components. Yes,
Great.
yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to compliment that there's been a tremendous improvement when I first learned of having the parts in-house, I thought it was a good idea. But once it was exposed how the inventory can eat up a tremendous amount of the budget and the inventory can get stale. And that eats you alive because then you've got old stuff and you want to rotate your stock. Very smart the way you're handling this, and very specific items. It's great that you have multiple vendors, and if it's an on-call deal, we pay a little extra and somebody brings it here ASAP. But rarely do we need to do that, from my understanding, because the way that you manage your parts, that a vehicle is going to need a certain amount of service, and as you mentioned, you have somebody come weekly, you pull what you need off the truck and you just keep on going. It's a much smoother, much more well-run system.
So
And I
this
think it's
vendor
saved-
has what's called the hot shot drivers.
Um,
When you call them, within 30 minutes to an hour max, they'll be
That
here with the
quick,
parts.
that is fantastic.
Yes,
God, it's
so.
breaking the speed limits on it. But that's in the value of a big piece of equipment when it goes down, and
Yes.
getting this customers, specifically get trash. I can tell you on my street, when the trash doesn't get picked up at a certain time, people are calling. So great. This is, I support this 100%. And the management to change this, whether it's this city manager or previous one or previous public works, this is a good idea and it's a benefit to the residents of the city.
So my understanding too, Mr. Chair, is that Fleet Services Incorporated was a low bidder, and we're looking at about 145,000 a year, more or less.
Yes. Somewhere in
For
there.
was it 3 years? I think is
Yes.
the contract for 3 years. So I think that,
Has anyone called in, Assistant City Clerk?
Chair Perillo, no, we do not have any speakers for this item.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve this unless you have more questions.
no, I second the motion. I really, well, I need to go over to the yard and see what you've done. This is fantastic.
Welcome
I haven't been
anytime.
there for 200 years, Maybe Alex can take me over because I asked him, but right, Alex?
$18 entry fee if you want the private tour to get to the front of the line.
Thank you.
Good job, and
Thank you.
Mr. PW and Brian, I know I have a big smile out there in the back. Good job.
Yeah, all the way around.
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Chair Perillo,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving along, number 3, Public Works Department, subject First Amendment to Trade Services Agreement 9547-22-PW with Powers Brothers Machine Incorporated, and a Second Amendment to Trade Services Agreement 9548-22-PW with All Safe Electric Incorporated for on-call pump and motor repair services. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute the following on-call pump and motor repair services for the water and wastewater divisions. Number 1, this is a 2-part item. Number 1, the First Amendment to Trade Services Agreement 9547-22-PW with Powers Brothers Machinery Incorporated to increase the not to exceed amount from $100,000 to $450,000 and to extend the term to February 29th, 2024. And Part 2, a Second Amendment to Trade Services Agreement 9548-22-PW with All Safe Electric Incorporated to increase the not to exceed amount from $200,000 to $450,000 and to extend the term to February 29th, 2024. Again, there will be no presentation tonight, but there is a presentation because of Measure M. It's not going to be shown. I strongly hope that this Measure M situation is resolved because the public is missing out on some tremendous information. The presentation is great. And do we have any public?
Chair Perrello, there are no speakers virtually or in person.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yes, again, compliments to PW for having the First and Second Amendment on this item. Those pumps are really, really important to me. Water, wastewater, and to me, this is a health and safety issue. So when a pump, we don't want a pump to go down, but if it does, we want the pump to be there. And to me, I think it's extremely important that we continue doing this fine work and be ready for hopefully that never goes down. But if they do, we want to be there to take care of it. An excellent presentation too, by the way. So
yeah, I agree with what the mayor said. Growing up where electric motors were a big deal, and whether pumps or wind machines, when they would go down, you need them ASAP. You needed them yesterday. A crop would be online, whether it's to freeze or to dry up because you couldn't get the wells working. There are tremendous skills involved in providing good equipment in repairs on this type of material. Exchanges are not always what you expect, but these are highly recommended. They've been checked by our department that they're acceptable. And I expect that we will hopefully not use them as much as potentially we could, simply because the stuff stays in good shape, but everything wears out, whether it's your body or your car or whatever, light bulbs, they all wear out. The significance of having something like this, as the mayor said, the importance, health and safety, the drinking water is a big deal. But if we have a mistake in the sewer plant and there is a leak, the fines are tremendously expensive. And it would be on the verge of disastrous for the city if we couldn't take care of that. So I totally support this. I don't have any questions. I'm grateful that we're staying on top of this. I'm grateful we've got people that are sharp and on the ball, paying attention to business and public works and looking out for the city.
And Mr. Chair, too, like the other having the parts and so forth, Powers Brothers has the pumps and they have the service available that when we need it. And I think last time, I'm not sure if there was this time, but they can provide service with how many, with an hour, 2 hours, or I think that's very significant, You want to share a little bit about that? Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Chair Perrello. Yes, it is such an important aspect of what we do in water. I just can't reiterate enough about, how much we rely every day and every night on the pumps and motors for water and wastewater, and also for recycled water.
Yeah.
And yes, these services are on call. And so we only use them when we need to. We need to make sure that the equipment is maintained. But whenever we do have an emergency repair, It's very important that we get that taken care of. Oh, excuse me, Joe Marcinko, Assistant Public Works Director.
So along with what the mayor said, if we make the phone call, they're here. They're not telling us when you're number 2 or 3 in line.
No, not at all. They
Okay.
understand it's critical services and they're out here as soon as possible.
I didn't mean to step on.
No, but I think it's important because you know what's happening back in Mississippi, you know. People out there without water for a whole week and it just unacceptable.
It is. And we're just fortunate that we don't have the disasters that they're exposed to all the time.
Thank God. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Is there any comment?
Chair Perrello, there are no speakers for this item.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion to
Okay,
approve.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Chair Perrello,
Yes.
Member Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 2-0.
Okay, Mayor, do you have any items for future agendas?
No, I don't, sir.
Okay, I would just like to share, and I don't know if this is an item for future agenda or not, but driving tonight, the normal lit up street, and all of a sudden there's a gentleman all in black trying to cross the street at the crosswalks. I did not see him. I didn't hit him, thank God. And he didn't raise Cain with me, but maybe we need something a demonstration for the public to show just when, even as much light as our streetlights put out, when you're dressed all in black, you cannot, especially on a night like this, you can't see. And it's not just the drivers, it's maybe a little common sense goes a long way, a light colored clothes or a flashlight. And along with that, it didn't happen tonight. And I call them knuckleheads, the guys that want to ride bicycles with no reflectors, no lights, nothing at night against traffic. They are rolling the dice and they're not going to win in an accident with a car.
And
I don't know if that's a future agenda item, but something's got to be shared. I think public safety maybe, or something.
We can look into working on that during pedestrian safety week or month with police.
Mr. Chair, didn't at one time a while back, we were talking about safety with Jason Benitez, about looking at our intersections and looking at those items, especially in downtown, something that I think is in
Yes.
in the schedule.
Yes, and that's in the works.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay, with that, are there any comments by staff? With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.